Hi everyone, Ardyth here with a fun layered gel plate technique. You'll need a gel plate, brayers, some paint, and a number of stencils with different sized holes. If you want a focal image, you'll need a stencil with that too. Although if you don't have one, you could stamp one when you're finished with the layers. You can build your layers on your gel plate and pull them all off in one pull, but today I'm showing how to pull one layer at a time to hopefully save the need to wait for each layer of paint to dry on the plate. To do this, you have to build your layers from the back up. I'm starting with blue paint and a stencil with wide open areas. So now the blue is down and I press down a piece of paper to pull it off. I do have to wait a couple of minutes for the paint to really adhere to the paper, but it's less time than waiting for the paint to dry on the plate. Here's the first pull. So next, working backwards, I grab some green paint. This is also bolder than the green I used last time, but again, I'm using the 6x6 inch emblem stencil, which is easy to move along and line it up to fill the full 5x7 gel plate with the pattern. Here's my blue paper, and while I won't get it placed precisely in the same spot, I am using the grid lines on my work surface to kind of line it up approximately. There are tools for lining things up exactly, a bit like the old Stamp-A-Majig, but I don't have one. Again, I gave it a couple of minutes for the paint to adhere to the paper, and then I pulled it up. You can clearly see how the paints are opaque enough to layer up clearly, without any blending. My next layer is a bright yellow and a stencil with smaller openings. This time I noticed that it took quite a while for the paint to transfer, and my theory is that it's because the paper is actually quite wet with paint, making it slicker and harder to grab the paint from the plate. Another thing supporting my theory is that while you can see that the yellow is a separate layer from the green, it's not standing out quite as bright a yellow where it's on the green as it does where there's blue or white spots. Maybe I didn't wait long enough between the green and yellow and they're blending just a bit. Next, it's time for the pink layer with a stencil that actually has lots of different sized holes. The really small ones actually make it a little tricky to get the paint through with the brayer. So I added a bit more to get it down into the holes, but then I lifted off quite a bit from the top of the stencil and I rolled it off on a scrap piece of paper over to my left. You can see even in the video that this paper is getting quite wet. The warping makes it very visible. So again, I needed to wait a little bit for the paint to transfer to the paper. I just keep checking on one corner, and if I can see paint right on the gel plate, I know it's not dry, and I press the paper back down and wait another couple of minutes. So here it is just before I do the flower layer. I'm getting a very similar look to the cards I made a couple of weeks ago with the one pull method, but it's definitely taking less time. I laid the final stencil down on the plate, keeping in mind that I'll be cutting the cardstock down into two panels, so I want to think about where that dividing line between the two will hit that middle flower. This time I blended some very dark navy ink through, again working it down into the narrow areas of those petals and stems. And once I had good coverage, I put my panel down for the final time and gave it a good few minutes for the paint to transfer. Here's the single pull panel I did a couple of weeks ago for comparison. Very similar look, except that I used some bolder colors today. To finish the cards, I trimmed the panel to two 3¼ by 4½ inch panels to create a substantial white frame on my card. And then I kept it really simple with some white die-cut sentiments. I love these messy, intense, artistic-looking panels, but I also left some breathing space, so lots of white is the perfect solution. I hope you enjoyed this technique and will give it a try. If you're interested, you can see the one pull method on my YouTube channel. In that video, I even show you how to get a similar look without a gel plate. Thanks so much for watching. See you next time.